Hey everybody, it's Chad with Nobody Else's Auto. Here on Nobody's Show, we look at a lot of cars. A lot of parts cars, a lot of project cars, barn finds, stuff I drag out of fields, things like that. One thing we haven't done a lot of, and a lot of you guys have asked about, is our good cars. And yes, Dad and I have a lot. We have a lot of cars in our own collection. And it's pretty varied and a lot of cool stuff. But the car we're going to share with you today is something that has basically never not been part of my life. Car's been around forever, since I was a little kid. This car has always been around. It's always been part of the collection. It was my grandpa's, and it was my dad's. And the car's been sitting for almost 20 years in storage. And now it's back out among the living. So let's see what Dad and his friend have to say about it, and let's go get this 58 Buick out.
Hi everybody. I want to tell you about this 58 Buick. This is a car that's been in the family for years. I bought this car in 1976 when I worked at the Buick dealership. Come in as a local trade-in, put on the back row to sell to the salvage yard. Car's only got 48,000 miles on it. Actually, my dad wanted a car, an old car to fix up, so we picked this up and I helped him restore it. The car was really in pretty good shape, with the exception of the paint was all peeling. Typically, like some of the clear cut cars you see today, the paint was just peeling everywhere. So we basically hand sanded the car and repainted it. It did have one fender that was a little bit bent up on it. We got that straightened out and did the normal maintenance, some ball joints, wheel bearings, brakes and stuff like that. Put the car on the road. We drove it. He drove it for years. We took it all over the state on some car shows and some driving tours. And then the car kind of got, I purchased the car back for him when he got a little too old to take care of it. And I kept it and drove it. And since I have several cars, it didn't get driven as much as it should have. Long story short, the water pump started leaking and it got parked. It got put on the back burner. And it's set for approximately 20 years. Well, just recently, I got a good friend of mine, Jay Maya, standing here beside me, offered to come and help me try to get this thing back on the road again. So we got her pushed in here and started looking things over. Obviously, the first thing we attacked was the water pump and make sure everything was all right there. And I'm gonna let Jay kind of explain to you what he done. He did a super job of getting this thing back in top mechanical condition and ready to roll from the bottom up. And he's a really good buddy of mine and really did a wonderful job of getting this thing rolling. So I'm gonna turn it over to him right now. Go ahead, Jay.
Well, yeah, as Steve said, the car sat quite a while and needed some attention to get back into usability. Of course, the water pump was the first thing. That's where we started, getting the water pump out of there. Of course, found as moving the hose, we had thermostat housing that was ate up enough. A new hose wasn't going to seal, so we had to find one of those too. So did the water pump and all new hoses and belts. In the process, we discovered a little bit of leakage on the valve covers, so we replaced the valve covers, tuned it up again. When we finally got it fired up, also found that, well, the fuel pump was still pumping, but most of it was spraying all over the place instead of the end of the carburetor. So we bypassed that and added an electric fuel pump. Then we got it running good. It seemed good. Had an exhaust leak, so we had to replace the crossover pipe. It was a little rough. That was quite a chore. That was a little bit of a snaking trip to get that into position right. But that all worked out well. Then we decided, well, the brakes we know did not feel right. Pulled the brakes all apart. The brakes themselves weren't too bad, but all the wheel cylinders from sitting that long had corroded up and just more or less locked up. So we replaced all the wheel cylinders. We're unsure about the master cylinder, and so we pulled that. And this has got an interesting power brake unit on it rather than the old diaphragm type power brake. It's actually a little cylinder with a piston in it that's spring loaded, and that piston has got control valves in it that move the vacuum to the spring side to help it assist. We found a kit for the fuel or for the master cylinder, but the booster, we just basically had to clean it up and verify all the control valves in it worked properly, and they did. The master cylinder on this is a little bit different than most master cylinders, rather a piston that's got a cup that it's pushing. The cups are hollow and the piston just travels through them. So it's just a matter of the fluid in the relaxed position flows into the main cylinder chamber, and then that piston pushing through the plunger or the wipers just creates a push on the hydraulic fluid to get it's got to go someplace, so it goes to the brake. It was pretty interesting, but it all worked out pretty good. Like I say, brakes, all the wheel cylinders we had to do, they were all locked up. The had to add that electric fuel pump. I mentioned that already. Various things cleaning up. We had to do a little bit of work on the some of the wiring, but it wasn't too awful bad. Start off with this one has the starter. It works with you put the accelerator totally to the floor, and there's a switch on the carburetor that engages the starter. I had a little issue with that to start with, but that wasn't too much of a problem. It worked out pretty good. But other than that, we've spent a few weeks at it, catching all the details, but I think we finally got this thing ready to roll. Brakes feel good, and actually got all the lights working again too.
New tires.
And put on new tires, and this is ready to go to a show.
Well, there you heard about what it took to get this car back on the road. Now, this particular 1958 Buick, it is a Super. It's the larger series car. And like Dad said, he bought this car, him and Grandpa bought this car in 1976. I was born in October of 74, so I literally don't know a time in my life where this car was not around. I always remember this car. I've never not known this car basically my entire life. So it is exciting to see it back on the road. Like I said, it's been sitting for close to 20 years, and now it's up and ready to go and ready to head down the road again. So let's go ahead and walk you around this thing and take a little bit better look at it. As you can tell, this is a four-door hardtop, pillarless sedan. You could roll the back window down and it's all open all the way through there. There was no pillar in it. This is a factory color, this kind of silver blue. Like Dad mentioned, the paint was peeling on this when they bought it, which was pretty common of the metallics in 58. You saw a lot of that. Buick has some different variations of this. They had a green, they had kind of a pinkish, and a lot of them did peel in that era. So pretty common. What are you doing? You ready to go for a ride? We're going to show everybody the car. You want to go for a ride? Can we show them the car, or you want to go for a ride? How about you jump out so we can show them the car? No, you're ready to go for a ride. No, you got to get over here and get out. Come on. There we go. All right. Good job. So while we're here, you can take a look inside of this. This car inside, pretty much all original. This is original interior, original seats, original door panel, just the way it came. But you got to remember, this car was restored and preserved and put away in 1976. So that, still helps save a lot of this. We see the car does have a power seat, factory power seat. And it is also a factory air car. We can look inside here. And we'll see it does have factory air. Factory power steering. As well as, like Jay mentioned, factory power brakes. Buick did have a great looking dash in these 58s as well. Let's take a look in the back seat while we're here. Once again, highly original and still looks good, especially considering this car's age. Been very well preserved. But like I said, the car was basically 18 years old when it was repainted and kind of kept as a toy. Now obviously the 1958 Buick and all GM cars of 1958, they did not scrimp on the chrome at all, anywhere, by any way, shape, or form. Obviously they had a lot of chrome on these. The sweep spear the Buick used for several years did follow this, although it was a narrower band all the way down to the rear wheel. And then in 58 they put this huge shield on the side of it. with this aluminum panel. Now, all 58 Buicks did utilize this aluminum panel with the exception of the Limited, believe it or not. The fanciest, the top of the line, actually had a painted panel with chrome in it. But Special, Super, Century, and Roadmaster all used this panel. Super was identified here on the back of the panel. Let's head up towards the front. There's so many iconic features on this car. We want to catch the front and the back. But up front, the 58 Buick grille was definitely iconic. I do not know how many of these little squares there are in this grille, but I do know it's a bunch, because I can guarantee you when I was a little kid, I had to chamois all those things. And I still distinctly remember chamoising those little squares, and there's a bunch of them. The big V in the front of the hood, another iconic piece. Something else Buick did in 58 that was a little bit different. Buick was always known for their bomb sight hood ornaments. 57 did still have a bomb sight type ornament in the middle of the hood. However, in 58 they switched that and went to one on each front fender, which was kind of a different trait for Buick. They still had the chrome spear down the hood, but they just removed the bomb sight and put them over on the sides. Let's take a peek under here. Let's see some of Jay's handiwork while we're here. And under here, there again, this car is highly original. This has never been apart. It's had some maintenance done. The repairs that Jay just mentioned, valve cover gaskets, water pump, brakes, things like that. But this has never been completely disassembled, and it is, like I mentioned, very highly original, just the way they were. Even back over here, and I don't know if you can see this or not, but this actually still has the cooling duct and cooling tube on the back of the generator. I believe that was an AC car piece only to get more air to that generator. A weird little piece that GM used in this era that you don't see very often. Still has the washer bottle in it with the pump. Yes, that's where you put your windshield washer fluid back in the day. And then, like we mentioned, the power brakes, the power steering, the factory air, all those components still here and intact. Over here on the passenger side, kind of more of the same as the driver's side. All this chrome, all this trim. Camomatic wipers that were also available, so they had a guide on them. Let's work our way around to the back of this car, because the back of the 58 Buick, the B58 Buick as Buick marketed as, was iconic with these big, huge tail fins. Not only were they big, huge tail fins, they were massive taillight pods back here on both sides. These things you could not miss. And we can see how this spear goes all the way from the quarter panel to the taillight, and then this blends all the way down into that massive bumper end. On your Supers and Roadmasters and Limiteds, your backup light was here in the bumper. Specials, it was in the taillight. So this was another unique piece to the bigger series cars in 1958. One other thing that we always did is, with all the cars we had, and still do to this day, we always looked for the pieces that go with them. The literature, the memorabilia, all the cool stuff that ties to a specific car that we've got in our collection. If you've seen most of my videos of the signs, the toys, the promos, you know we have a lot of memorabilia, and it's super cool, and always love getting pieces that are directly tied to one of the cars in our collection. And that's what we've got in the trunk of this 58. We've got some cool pieces in here. Obviously, we've still got the spare tire. We've still got the jack. All your mandatory necessary stuff that you would have to have in the trunk of a car like this. But there's a lot of other cool stuff in here. Here's a piece that I actually made 30 years ago. I made a 58 Buick mailbox for Dad one time. Ended up in the trunk of the car. Buick parts news from March of 58. This would have been a dealer piece. This is a local Kansas piece as well. 58 Model 43, so that was a 58 special on the front cover of that particular piece. All kinds of interesting things going on with Buick in that time period in these little magazines. And of course, another necessary piece, the shop manuals, always to go with the cars. Always a necessary piece to have. And a lot of the other cool literature here. Let's see what else we've gotten in this stack. The accessories for 1958, Buick engineer approved accessories. We fold this open. Trailmaster Spotlight. We don't have one of these for this car. The tissue dispenser, floor mats, mirrors, compass. The Buick is a Beauty 2 vanity mirror, touch-up paint, detail products, new car maintenance kit. So yes, you could buy new car maintenance kits even back then for your particular car. All factory branded for detailing and keeping your car clean and polished up. Undercoating available as well. Here's a cool piece, matchbook, face to face with the 1958 Buick. The Airborne B58, and then a rear shot on the back. This one was from a dealership in Iowa originally. And there were the features, the Dynastar grill. So that was called the Dynastar grill. I know it was a ton of squares de chamois when I was a kid. That's what I know it was. I know it as the ton of squares de chamois grill. That's exactly what it is, because it's a ton of squares de chamois. Of course, the owner's guide. These came in the glove box of all new cars with all the interesting tidbits you would need to know about it. Another piece, Buick Magazine, November 1957. This showed that probably that would have been the debut of the 58 Buicks. These are also a dealership piece. There's a picture of the Roadmaster, the Supers, the Century, and the Special. Lots of great pictures in there. There's the Limited, like we talked about on the rear side. The Limited, the top of the line, the only one that did not have a solid shield on the rear quarter panel. It mimicked the same design, but was slightly different on the rear shield. And there were multiple other specific trim differences on the back of the Limited, but that was the most noticeable one. And another cool piece, when you were looking at a new Buick in 1958, this was the sales room brochure you would look at in the dealership. These are great. These are also a piece. Any collector car you've got, these are always amazing to have. Back then, these were almost always illustrated, and they were absolutely amazing. The colors, the drawings. In fact, there's our 58 Super right there. Same model, same body style. The 58 Super 4-door hardtop. So let's see what else is in here. Obviously, it's going to show us the cars of all these different models, including the wagons and the amazing 58 Caballero wagons, the engines, and some of the accessories that were available. So, pretty cool. And then on the back of it, we have a shot of the 58 Limited. We can see the different taillights and the unique trunk trim on the Limited. Now, a couple of other pieces we've got in here. This, still in the GM accessory box. This is kind of a cool piece. This stuff is in here just strictly for display purposes. And this is literally a plug-in spotlight. You could plug this into your cigarette lighter. And this is a factory GM approved accessory. So yes, cigarette lighters were actually used for PowerPoints for other things prior to your cell phone and CD player and everything, all the other accessories that have come out over the last 30 years that you've plugged into a cigarette lighter prior to actually being able to plug in an actual power cord. Something else is kind of cool we just got stuck in here. What the heck? A&W root beer mug, definitely a sign of the times. When you get your tray on the window, this is what your root beer came out in. So we put it in here for display as well. One other cool piece that is in this car that is factory for this era of late 50s era GM cars. Now, obviously it says Buick. It's got the Buick script on it. It is a radio. This was a transistor portable radio. Now these were available throughout GM. Buick had them, Pontiac, Olds. This is actually a radio you could remove and take with you. It had a plug in here. There was a receptacle in the glove box. I believe on Buick, Oldsmobile was actually a receptacle in the glove box. Pontiac, the receptacle was in the dash. You actually just pulled the radio out of the dash and you plugged it back in when you were done. So these are cool accessories and interesting pieces. Just used a few short years in the late 50s, but it was called basically a transportable radio. An extra radio you could pull out, take with you to the picnic, the ball game, whatever it was, plug it right back into the car. So there again, an accessory that kind of ahead of their times. And that's the crazy part about it. When you look at this stuff from the 50s, almost all the options we have today were available or at least began in the 50s. You hit seek on your radio, that came out in 1950. Obviously power steering, power brakes, air conditioning, auto headlight dimmers was available in the 50s. Transportable radios, full power window seats, locks, all those accessories came about in the 50s. Obviously they're much more refined in today's world, but it all started clear back in this era of cars. So anyway, pretty cool car. Definitely excited to see it back on the road and ready to get this thing back out and take it out and cruise it around a little bit. So like I said, to me, this car is really cool because I've never not known this car, ever. You know, I was less than 2 years old when they bought it. And so literally this car has never not been a part of my life, including a ton of squares de chamois style grill. So super excited about it. Let's go out and get this thing out. Let's take it for a spin around the block and see how it does. Well, it's exciting to see this old 58 Buick back on the road. It's been a long time coming. Like I said, been sitting close to 20 years. And for me, it's really cool because I've never not known this car to be part of my life, even though it does have way too many squares on the grill to chamois. I can absolutely guarantee you that. But it's cool to see it back on the road, moving under its own power, and ready to be back out and driven and enjoyed again. So, been a long time. Cool to see it moving again. It's a beautiful car. Not a perfect car by any means, because it's, other than the paint, primarily original. And now it's time to clean it up. Literally just got this thing running, so it's time for a good bath, a good cleanup, and ready to get this thing back out on the road. So super excited about it. Obviously, huge shout out to our good friend Jay for helping Dad out with this project and getting this thing back among the living again. So, but they're not done. Coming up next, they're starting on the 1973 Buick Riviera GS that Dad bought in 1977 and still has. And it is a completely original car as well. Boattail GS, once again, been in storage for years. All original paint, all original interior. That's the next one on the docket. Going to get back out on the road. So stay tuned. We'll be bringing you some stuff on that too. Sure hope you enjoyed the 58 Buick. It's a beautiful car. They're an iconic car. And like we mentioned earlier, no shortage of chrome used in 1958. So they've always been iconic for that era of cars. So stay tuned. We've got a lot more cool stuff coming up. Hope you enjoyed the Buick. Even though we do a lot of parts cars, a lot of project cars on here, we've got a lot of our own cars in our own collection. So hope you enjoyed some of that too. We'll keep trying to work on bringing some more of those cars as well. So you like these old cars, like old trucks, you like memorabilia, be sure to check out the channel, Nobody's Show. It's about all we do on here is a lot of old car stuff. So hit that subscribe button, check out some of the other videos. Hope you enjoyed this one. I'm sure hope to see you soon on the next video. Thanks for watching, everybody.